And we're live. So welcome to Phil Goes Deep, and this is the GRC IRM full flow series. Just realised I haven't got my headphones in, so hold on a second. Hopefully the audio's okay. Yes, excellent. So welcome to Phil Goes Deep. This is GRC IRM full flow, where we are converting the GRC application in ServiceNow to Flow Designer. We've got 80 minutes right now. It's part 7, and we're going to be focusing on the GRCUtils API. So far we've managed to convert indicators, issues, and now we're going to move into a bit more of the core API, where we see a lot of asynchronous activity, things like generation of entities, generation of items. We are starting with a blank sheet of paper today. I am going to switch to my screen. Oh, I've got pink hair. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October, so check the link in the description if you want to find out more information. I'm trying to get to 100 supporters on that. So thanks to everyone who has sponsored so far. I've also got a link in the description for the ServiceNow community post that you can join in the conversation, but please feel free to get involved on the chat as well. And we're going to get into the show. So what I started with was an approach in here to say we're going to identify the API calls, and we're going to convert those methods into actions, and then create our flows and subflows, and then replace those calls. So GRCUtils is a bit of a beast. Let's take a look. So we've got a tab over here. I know one thing that sticks out is something called generate link. So I think that's where we're going to see a lot of attention. What I'm going to do is go into code search and just filter on GRCUtils. I'm going to open up Flow Designer. Please let me know as well if the audio levels and everything are okay. The show last week I was a bit concerned, but everything turned out okay. Seems like my instance is running a bit slow. Also, yeah, if you check out the ServiceNow community, you'll see that I've made it to the #1 spot. So let's see how long we can last there. But shout out to everyone on the leaderboard. Out to Jan. Very, very helpful posts. So we've got the IRM full flow article that's been pinned. Hope my flow designer's up and running, and GRCUtils has got things like dictionary overrides, reference qualifiers, get unrelated records. Okay, it's the thing about our utils. What else are we doing? Enrichment query, that's the entity type filter table. Is processing. Okay, so these types of calls aren't going to go into Flow Designer. Start workflow. I wonder whether we should. We also need to watch scope. Okay, I'm staying within the GRC profile scope for now, but what I'm going to be looking for is, if I've not got this wrong, there's a lot of stuff. Hopefully I haven't named the API wrong. I'm pretty sure I want the generate links business rule. So things like prevent generation, I assume. Let's just take a quick look at these. These are going to be something like a before business rule, and that's in policy and compliance anyway. Yeah, before. So we're not going to even look at before business rules. I'm looking for relate profile types. That's going to be an interesting one. Anything that's asynchronous is definitely going to be in scope here. Remove entity relation on delete. I don't know what this is. At the moment I'm just trying to find a good starting point. Set discrete fields from applies to. This is nice. This is on profile, but I think that's a before business rule. Set name. Yeah, this you can see there's no update in there. Pop-up scratch pads is display business rules. Start control test. You see how big? Here we go. Update item generation records. See how many methods we've got in GRCUtils. Validate parent. Not what I was looking for. Let's have a look at UI actions. Add. New. So let's see where I'm thinking about. If I go to entity types, the M2M tables within entity types, when we attach an entity type, even the creation of new entities in here, if we look at the business rules, generate links, asynchronous. Have I called the wrong API for GRCUtils? Yeah, look, that's GRC item generator engine. Okay, so I might have to raise a change order and not focus on GRCUtils right now. GRC item generator engine. Let's stick this in our document in here. So we've got item generator engine. When we are on an entity type and we change the filter, if we look in here, there's a UI action, update entities from filters, and this calls an event queue generating profiles, which we'll call a script action. Generating profiles, and that's GRCUtils. Let's generate. Okay, so I was calling it generate links. So GRCUtils is generate profiles. Equally, so I'm open up GRCUtils. You'll see what I've been doing here, messing around with version 11. I'm on Paris. The script, the scheduled job that maintains our entities. It's called profile generation. That never got updated with the nomenclature changes. You see, this is calling import profiles, and import profiles is read only, even though it says to override base class functions. So that's getting looked at. I know I've raised this with the product team, but the base is protected. Okay, so this really brought me some alarm bells. However, what I was able to do was look at the GRCUtils and what was previously in version 10 getting called directly from within the script, within the scheduled job. I've actually managed to intercept these. Okay, so when it calls import profiles, this is actually getting logged out. So import profiles API actually makes a call back to our classic GRCUtils. So it's generate profiles that I want to focus on, not generate links. Okay, generate links is within item generator, so that's something for next time, maybe generate links. But there's loads of stuff where you've got M2M relationships kicking off asynchronous, and you can't always keep track of what's happening and when. So I'm really hopeful that putting this stuff into flow design is really going to start to see the benefit. So generate profiles is getting called. Let's go back to our code search. I know I've been a little bit all over the place right now. Generate profiles, and under GRCUtils base, I still don't think I've got my script sync set up correctly in here. I'm just going to copy this out into VS Code. It's just huge, this file. It's great though. Look at all these APIs at the top. So all the methods at the top. So lots of checks getting done here. Check-in is check. Generate profiles from type. I think this is going to be very relevant. Get indicator templates from content. Get item based on table. I don't really want the gets. Relate profiles. This is definitely of interest. Relate profile types also. Set discrete fields. That's a before. That's called from before business rules. So there's no update in there, so we can't call that from. We can't call that from a flow designer. Action. Set discrete fields. Start workflow. Cancel workflow. I'm curious whether these ones. I think there's out of the box actions, core ServiceNow core actions for workflow. So I'll be interested to see about those. Show add button, get default template. Some of this stuff's coming from before, or sorry, from display. Is check is. I keep talking to people about variable naming conventions and function naming conventions. It really does pay off. If I look at this, I should be able to know that is going to return a Boolean value and check. Is and check. It's going to return true or false, right? User has role. Not sure why that needs to be within GRCUtils, to be honest. Remove users without role. Get downstream profile class list. This stuff's getting used for GRC Workbench. Get content records. So we'll see where some of this is called from. Get profiles from profile class. Generate profiles. So this is this one here. So generate profiles has got a lot of inputs in there. I would have loved if this was private and generate profiles was sitting at the top as a public method. All that good work, and then the main, the main star of the show doesn't get the benefit. So let's tidy this up. I think these are the main ones. Not to say it's completely limited to these. So generate profiles, and we did a code search. It gets called from a script action. It gets called from a scheduled job. Okay, that comes. Would we be able to replace the scheduled job if it's going through import profiles? I think we can take the old legacy code and assume that within a scheduled job. So that's going to be interesting. Let's put that as a question. UI action, generate profiles. That doesn't get called anymore, that UI action. Yeah, it's not active. So import profiles is probably our main one. And let's take a look at generate profiles from type. Okay, so generate profiles from type probably comes from what we're saying here. 49 and 360. 49, go to definition. No, 350, 360 wasn't it? Yeah, so from within generate profiles it calls generate profiles from type. So actually it's not a public method. That gets called from in here. Relate profiles. Relate profiles. So what's called in relate profiles then? This relate profiles 364. 364 is coming from generate profile. So this is the thing. When I was looking at some methods in a previous episode, I thought, oh, if it's a public method, then it's probably getting called from, you know, an endpoint like a business rule or a script action, and actually it might have been getting called from a different script included, a different class. So just because it's public, you know, denoted as public without the underscore, doesn't necessarily mean it's getting called from a relevant endpoint. So that was a massive lesson learned for me when trying to convert the entire application. Here we go. Right, relate profile types is coming from a business rule. And that's on entity. When to run after applies to record changes. Interesting. Relate profile type, so that's a business rule. It's calling that. And where else? Script include. Yeah. Okay. Start workflow. I'm not too bothered about these ones. So let's do the generate profiles, and then we need to think about what we'll do for the new import profiles API, and maybe we'll move over to GRC item generator. That's I got a little bit muddled up when I was planning this one. So generate profiles. If we see there, generate profiles. So generate profiles, type query, no, not this one. Yeah, look, generate profiles. Ah, so it takes in here all these, but it only passes them if it goes from CIs. I don't think this gets called very often. If table name and selected CIs and user field, sorry, selected IDs. I think that might be for a legacy method. This is the two main ones: profile type, entity, need update flag. However, it's like for like, so we're going to convert all of these with values and we'll just pass them as strings. So we go into Flow Designer and create a new action. Create a new action, generate profiles, and we need a new method in here. GRC IRM full flow GRCUtils. Okay, inputs we've got here. Where can I put these that's visible? There. Profile type, need update flag. Oh, it's also Hacktoberfest as well. So shout out to anyone that has been getting involved in Hacktoberfest. Shout out to the Rangu team for Friday's efforts. Out to Raf, Sabina, out to Ali, Andre. I feel like I'm missing someone. I'll tell you what. Now components is a real toughie, something that we're really excited about, and just seem to be quite difficult to get some traction on. So if you're learning something new, or you want to learn something new, check out Now Components. Get involved in the hackathon. There's still a few days. You need to make 4 pull requests. Check out the developer site on ServiceNow. And for me, the main learning there was about the use of GitHub. Not something that I've always backed up my custom apps, scoped apps to source control, but I think the Now Component stuff is going a different way, and you're kind of doing local development, pushing that up to Git. And then once it's compiled, you're pushing it into the instance and you get the compiled version. So that was probably one of the things that really slowed us down. Do we get any output from here? Do we return? Yes, we're returning. Okay, so if I go to that definition, well, it returns, but there's no return in here. Okay, and generate profiles, where have you gone? Generate profiles from CIs. Oh, it's a biggie. There's no returns in here. So actually that's a false return. I'm not going to bother with an output then. We're going to do a script step. And this is going to be called generate profiles. Variables are all going to come in here. I'll grab them from this top bit. No. This top bit here. I love it when this can just get auto-populated somehow, or at least I'd like to understand why it doesn't. I guess because you can bring actions, you can bring inputs into your top action, and your script steps might not actually need to consume all of them. So maybe that makes sense. Oh, I had this before as well. Where it goes to undefined. If you drag over it, it's dropping off. So profile type is fine if you come in from the side, but if I drag over the top of it, it goes undefined. Bit of a bug there. Table name. So come in from the side, user field, content type, content ID. Excellent. Then we just do a new GRCUtils dot generate profiles. Inputs dot profile type, inputs dot need. let's try this. Var profile type equals inputs.profile type. If anyone's wondering what a profile is and you're just getting into GRC, it used to be called profile. Okay, and it was changed recently, which makes a lot of sense, but you can't change all the methods and you can't change the tables. So this stuff's always going to be hanging around. I'm just going to copy, just do copy and paste. User field, content type, and content ID. In fact, I can then just copy that back out. Boom. So that's going to take care of whether or not we want to go through the generate from CIs or generate the normal one and just use these two. We've got the option for these top two. I think in terms of making something mandatory, profile type definitely has to be mandatory. I think need update flag is optional. It's not denoted in here. What you might expect to see is something like this, which is always nice, but it's not there right now. There's no code and documentation on that method. We've got generate profiles. Let's save that. I'm going to give that a nice name. I'm going to call it generate entities, right? Just because it's modern, it's up to date, and when you see that from the Flow Designer kind of front end, that will make more sense to people. I feel, what happened here? They went the wrong way around. Don't think that matters. Profile type, they seem to have switched around. Let me just publish that again. I don't think it matters because, you know, it's all going to come in mapped, so it's not like a function where the order is very critical. I've got my action. I need a subflow. Okay, my subflow is going to be called generate entities. GRCUtils. Run as the user that initiates the session. That's what happens. Inputs and outputs. So let's think about this. When we saw generate profiles, when it's getting called, I don't recall seeing anything coming in with the extra actions here. So that script generate profiles. Okay, actually this script action has got the options. Okay, just I've overlooked that because it's never happened. So we do need to have these things specified. So Flow Designer, data, table name, selected IDs. Okay, so that's coming as event palm 1. So wrapping the get, always nice. We need to create all these inputs. I'm just wondering now, when I've done this, I'll give the names. If you notice the names, so the label is that, the name is that, and it doesn't respect camel case here. I think I've done something wrong in my action, so I'm just going to go back to that in a second. So I feel like I've done something wrong, because I went through, didn't I, and changed all of these to follow this format, which is the format that we see in Flow Designer. I forget the name of it. Can't remember if it's table underscore name. User field. So these are the names. When I was calling them from within my script action, they weren't called that, and actually this should be called like entity type. Need update, and that's true or false, right? It's a boolean. True, false. Table name's a string. So we call table name. Selected IDs. Handling data types correctly from within Flow Designer is also a bit of a new one for me, because trying to handle, why has that done that with a 6? Yeah, handling things like arrays and objects and passing them through just doesn't seem to like it as much. Let me go back to here. If you notice, this is my name, and sorry, it's alright there. Entity type, need update, and that should be true or false. Table name, I think I'm calling them wrong in the script step, so I'm just giving these a nice friendly name. And then in here, look, I've called this name. Oh, so it doesn't matter, that's fine, that is fine, because they're mapped to it. So I don't know why they need that name then, if it's kind of invisible. How are we doing on time? Right, we're 30 minutes in, which means we've got 50 minutes remaining. We haven't tested anything yet. We don't need an output, so we're done with inputs. Actions, guess what? We're going to go to Profiles, Utils, Generate, and Entity Type. You can see there's mandatory. When entity type comes in, let's look at that code. When we were looking at our script action, entity type comes in, so profile type comes in, it's actually coming in as a glide record. So my data types are wrong here. This input is not a string, it's a reference to entity type publish that, and then in here let me save it and hopefully that refreshes. No, okay, I didn't need to refresh. This input is a reference to entity type. Excellent, so that's done. In here I'm going to pass in entity type. Need update is a true or false, and then we can just map these, dragging them across. Whatever's coming in just gets passed straight through. But I think for objects, things like glide records are another benefit of Flow Designer is it's going to make sure that it's the table that it should be, especially when you're setting up your flows. So that's as simple as it needs to be for a subflow. If we just test this, I just want to make sure it runs correctly. It doesn't matter which one it is. If I just say run test, let's just make sure it completes successfully. Obviously I haven't passed anything in other than the entity type. That's been executed, but you can see it did take a while. It's completed successfully. There's no outputs. Yeah, we don't know what it did. There's no outputs. Just hope that works. So where's generate profiles getting called from? Within this script action. So from our subflow, that's an action, we want the subflow. Generate entities. Just publish this. I'm going to do a snippet, and this is going to run asynchronously. And I only want the try, actually. I don't need the anonymous function in there. If I go to my script action, okay, so we've got the if statement to deal with. Let's create a function down here called function call subflow. Why don't you like that? Unexpected token. Okay, of course. We've got to map in our stuff here. So we're going to map in this. Call that. That won't be true. Is it always true? Yeah. So we'll just call that true directly in here. Profile type, table name. Not sure why the order changed. Selected IDs. I'm interested where this other one can actually get called from, because it's not something that's really that obvious. It did slip my mind. Okay, so we call subflow. Now we do want to call it asynchronously. So we want to take this one out, get runner, generate entities. Why don't you like it? I'll mix spaces. Synchronously, we don't want any outputs. So that's going to go this way, call subflow. And that's just going to go to profile type. Okay, so nothing's going direct to the API. It's all going through the subflow here. So I'll save that. That's called generating profiles. Script action. Generate profile. So that's going through a subflow. Got a script action here. What's calling that script action? if we go to our entity type and, for example, business services, subflow is called asynchronously, yeah. If I change this filter and just say I don't know, approval group is anything. When I update that entity filter, I now get this UI action. When I click this, it throws the event which calls the script, action, which should call that. You see that's queued up now. Complete. And that ran. Okay, so we've got the UI action, forgotten what it's called, update entities from filter, UI action, update entities from filter. Profile generation job still going via import profile. Generate profiles takes care of these two. So these ones are done. This one's done. Which means I don't really need to do these, but mark them as done. And then we've got a business rule. Just let me sort that text out because I can't read it. Text background color. There we go. Relate profile type. So we need to find that method, relate profile types. Wow. Does it return anything? It returns results. What is results? An object. Where's results defined? Yes, up here. Okay, so this might be interesting. This is what I said about the data types. So let's start with our action. And create a new action. No, in fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to copy an action. Copy action. Is that what it's called? Relate profile types, yeah. And obviously I'm going to rename this relate entity types. Now my inputs are very limited here. Got profile and profile.sysid, so profile must be a glide record. So I can get rid of most of these, all but one of these inputs. And it's going to be called entity. Oh yeah, once you created it, can't change it. So if you copy in actions that are handling the same inputs, then that makes a lot of sense. If I'd copied it though, you'd expect it to not be locked in. It's SNGRC profile mandatory. In here, you can get rid of these entity. I'm going to call this GI entity because it is a glide record coming in. And it's called relate profile types. And we're going to say outputs dot results equals, and this is results, and this is an object. Now this is a predefined structural object, which should be fine, right? I should be able to do this and it won't be a problem, because I can look at that and say added, existing, removed. Not sure how we map the values. Yeah. When I'm passing objects in and out that are a bit more flexible, in code that's fine. In here it's nigh on impossible from what I can tell. These are integers. So this is very easy, but why or how do I map them? If I save that and then create an output here, which is going to be called results. Results, and this is going to be an object. I'll do the same again. So if I do this, boom. Why is that expandable? Added, existing. It's called existing removed. Edit exit mode. Can I drag that there? Does that mean that's populating itself? Hopefully because they match, then that matches. So relate profile types, passes the results back, input, entity, save, publish, so relate entity types. It's called relate profile types. Come from a business rule called relate profile types, and when this runs, when applies to record changes, need a subflow. New subflow, relate entity types, category, GRCUtils. Input is going to be entity, and that's a reference to SNGRC profile. Mandatory outputs is results, which is called results, and that's an object. I wonder if I need to specify this here. Let's say that's done. Then my action is under GRCUtils relate entity types. I pass in entity, and then flow logic assign subflow outputs. Hold on a minute. Here, results equals results. Okay, you can just pass out an object. Depends how you want to access the elements of that object. Let's save that, and let's test it. Let's just grab any entity. I don't know if it really matters. Let's run that test. Hopefully we can see an object with 0, 0, 0 in the results. Results is an object. I don't see anything in here. Okay. Let's look at that logic. Flows. We need this now. The flow is going to replace the business rule. So this is relate entity types. We're doing on time. 53 minutes. Half an hour. So our trigger is going to be, is it insert and update? No, just update. Okay. Updated table, SNGRC profile table, which is our entity table. Filter applies to changes. Oh, this one always slows, a bit slow. Applies to changes. Run trigger once. We'll just say for every update. Run in the background. Should be fine. I mean, it's an after business rule, so it should actually run in the foreground. If we try and match things up, we can always optimize them later. Let's go and get our subflow here. Subflow. Generate. No, I've not published it. No, it's not published. Okay, that's published. Delete this. Add a subflow. GRC profiles. Relate entity types. Pass in the entity record. Might get an action out of it. I'm going to activate that, and I'm going to deactivate a business rule. I'm just going to remind myself what actually happens here. So it goes and matches. Yeah, make sure it belongs. Okay, so as an example, take the entity type business services and take one of these entities. If I go and point this now, so it's called SAP Financial Accounting, and you can see that this belongs to the business services entity type. But imagine that I changed, yes, if I said you're no longer that and you're now a user called Phil Swan, imagine, oh, I'm getting a buffering message. Got a stream poor status. I hope it's not a problem for anyone watching this live or on repeat on demand. I'll just slow down a little bit now. When I change this applies to, what should happen is it will be removed from this business services entity type because it didn't belong there anymore. It won't meet the conditions of that entity type. If I save that and then go and watch in Flow Designer for executions just now. Okay, let's reload this. Entity updated, yes. Subflow called. Okay, well, let's go to the subflow and look at these executions. Complete. That came in. No, this is not the right one. How come subflow isn't showing here? That went into a subflow. So my subflow should have an execution against it, shouldn't it? Not the one from 6 minutes ago, the one from just now. I would have thought that I could see the execution of the subflow. Let's have a look at my action. Relate entity types, executions. Doesn't look like it's got that far, does it? Definitely didn't work because I've now got this entity where the applies to changed. And it's still got me in the business services. So let me go to GRCUtils, and we're talking about relate profile types. That's what it's calling, isn't it? In our Flow Designer action. Boom, boom, here. Relate profile types. It's being called running in the foreground. So let's fire up script debugger. I'm going to close down some extra windows I've got open. Make that inactive, that's good. So that's a flow. What's properties? That's just descriptions. Will the debugger kick in? Let's change the applies to record and find out. I'm going to send it to a kib. Yeah, shout out to a kib. When I save this, I'm hoping script debugger kicks in, but it doesn't. So my flow designer, I'll go to executions, run just now, errored, call subflow failed. I wonder if that's because of my, let's take this off and change this back to me. Oh, I hate when you drag in a modal window. You should be able to drag in a modal window. Save that and flow designer. Tidy some of this stuff up. Look at my executions. That complete. Okay, so putting a script debugger in debuggers up the execution in flow designer. Even though it's running in the foreground. I would have liked to be able to still step through my code if possible. So that execution ran okay. If I go to my subflow, why does the subflow not show my executions? $11 minutes ago. What should it be doing then? Let's turn the, let's deactivate that for a moment, turn my business rule back on and put the debugger on there. Let's just see what's happening with the code. I'm a bit curious there. I thought that the executions would be visible at all levels, at the flow, subflow and action level. It appears not to be the case. So I'm just switching between users at the moment. So make sure debugger's running, yes. When I save this, should get caught. Here we go. And that's what I wanted from Flow Designer. Don't know why that wouldn't be possible if it's running in the foreground. So we're going off to enrichment query. We're getting all active enrichment queries. Okay, we're going to go through each enrichment query and add the query of the profile applies to, which is my user ID, my user sys ID. Oh, that's interesting. I thought it might use the glide filter.check record, but actually it combines the existing condition and the condition on sysid equals, and if it's next. That's quite clever. So it matches, if it matches both, and it's not going to match any, I don't think. I haven't got any entity types pointing at the user table, so we shouldn't see any. So when you did change the applies to on a record, it's going to say, do I meet the conditions of any entity type filters? And if I do, then add me to them. Okay, that's obviously quite a lot of filters. Let's just put a break there and play that. So I expect string IDs will be pretty empty. Yeah, still undefined. IDs was an object with nothing in it. So GR unwanted is any M2M records that no longer apply. So we're looking at the profile sysid, which should be good. Created one-off false, which means they're automatically created. So if you manually mapped it into an entity type, it wouldn't matter. We didn't have any. That can't be right. There's one there. Surely that should have come up var I in IDs. There's nothing in. Created one-off equals false. Let's open this M2M record. Created one-off equals false. So this record should have been deleted. This should have been a GR unwanted. If I take this out, switch it back to me, it doesn't really matter who it is. There's no glide modal. It doesn't really matter who it is. So it does not meet the condition. Script debuggers on. Save. I'm going to play that because it's going to catch it after here. String IDs empty. So why would this table, if we look at this record, open a new record, that's the table, GRC M2M profile type, GRC M2M profile type, profile.sysid here. So let's do this filter and say, yeah, entity, let's show related records. Oh, we've already gone. Entity sysid, run that, yes, and created manually, just created one off, is false, run that. Oh, create manually, hold on then. equals false. But if we say in here, created manually is false, that's bizarre. I am baffled. I'm absolutely baffled right now. I don't even know what's going on. Right click show matching. It's gone. I'm so confused. Created manually, true or false? Right. Okay, so it's not going to work. This is why it's not going to work, because that query is not working. Why would that query not work? Is it because it's demo data? Could it be that simple that this stuff's come through and for some reason? If I open this record in Explore, created one off equals false. Hide element boolean. I'm going to say add query sysid and then add another query of created one off false gr.query and then gr.next and gr. No. So just humour me then. If I do this, get, and then gr.set value, gr.update, and by the way, never use gr. For some unknown reason, it can break stuff. Something to do with the Java level runtime, not something I really understand, but it's not recommended best practice. In fact, it's anti-practice, and it will show up in your sprint scans and health checks and stuff, so you don't really want that. It would be nice if we could use it safely, but unfortunately we can't. So don't do it, kids. Just say no. Add query. Let's just see gr.getRow count. Still 0. What the? I have no idea what's going on. Absolutely no idea. What if we wrap it? Nope. Okay, let's get rid of that sysid. Right, so okay. It doesn't make any sense, but so I've got one there. oh, maybe it's just demo data. If I just put it down to that and choose a different record, it will probably work then. Query next gr. Why is that? That shouldn't be difficult. Query gr.next. Yeah, no, it just took a while. So that works. So what happens then if I pick a different entity type? Just conscious of time, I've got kind of 3 or 4 minutes remaining. I do want to stick to these kind of 80-minute sessions because it works quite nicely if we do that. Let me point this one at sys user. And you're going to be able owns himself. Script debugger. Yep. Save that. Start debugging. Play that one out. Yep. Nothing in here because it doesn't belong. Unwanted. There we go. Right, so for some reason it's a demo data issue. Nothing of any interest, but let's watch what happens. This is going to get removed from that entity type. Okay, let me just play that now. And therefore entity's been removed from the entity type. If I then turn my business rule off and switch it back to my flow and activate, I've got 1 minute. Let's just see if I can point this at maintenance task, this one, which is where it belongs, and save that. Hopefully my script debugger didn't break. So now I had that on. Yeah, well did. Turn script debugger off. Okay, let me go to a different existing record, do the same thing, pick on this one and turn this to a user. You know, if you, it's a good kind of tip here then, if you're getting stuck on a certain record and that one record is behaving very strangely, go and get a different record that's similar. Create a new record, take it through the process from scratch. Just start with a really vanilla record, and you know, then test it there, because sometimes there can be something in the data that's just going to screw things up. Let's just save that. Access to set abortion. Oh right, okay, so set abort action because it already exists. Got a unique key violation. I can't drag on a glide modal. A kib is coming your way. A kib's in the demo data. I mean, he's one you go to. Yeah, look at that. It removed itself. If I go and look at that flow and rerun it, look, complete. I'd really like it if my object had my object had those numbers coming out of it. Let's see, is this the flow? That's the flow. I want the subflow. Executions. Why does it not? Does it not show my executions there? I'll go to the action. It must be only when you get called directly. But I'd have thought the action should have been in there. Oh well, lots to take away from this. Not hugely successful, but we have done a few bits, and we keep going. So thanks to everyone for watching. Let me switch this back. Yep, thanks everyone for watching. Have a happy Wednesday. And I'm kind of trying to do it, if it's not Wednesday then it might be Thursday. I don't want to do it on a Friday because of live coding happy hour, so shout out to all those guys that are running that, Andrew Barnes, Brad Tilton and all the guests, Chuck, etc. Shout out to Upside Down Andrew, thanks for all the help with the hackathon last week. Thanks to everyone that's been tuning in, liking the posts, getting involved on the community. Share, link, subscribe, etc. See you next time. Thanks everybody. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you soon.